talk about two questions really quick. I'm giving you the side benefit of the appendix one just so that you can hear it in a different format. You've read about it, you've talked about it, different things. I'm going to give you a little bit of explanation, but mainly I wanted to be able to have it on file and say, hey, I've done my due diligence to make sure that I've had every aspect, okay? So we're going to do this again. I think we did this before. Hold up your pinky. Hold up your pinky. That is the size of your appendix on average, okay? All right, now we're going to put it right about here on the right-hand side, right above your hip bone right there. Now, what it is it's connected to your large intestines, okay? So hold up your pinky again. Your appendix may be that size, it may be bigger, or it may be smaller, okay? You can put your pinky down now. So here's the deal. This little appendix right here is in the same spot on your intestines that if you look at a lot of animals like rabbits and deer, those are the ones that come to my head first, they're herbivores, they have an organ that's in that same location called the cecum. But the cecum, if your appendix is this big, the cecum on you would probably be about yay big. Okay, it's quite a bit larger. So one of the ideas is they think that it's not necessarily even for vegetation, it's actually more for like nuts and harder fats and things like that to break down. They're not really sure. But one thing it does suggest is perhaps if we have this organ that's right here, maybe it suggests something about our evolutionary past as to maybe we had an organ that was like a cecum, and maybe we had a different diet, and as human evolution took place, now that you have domestication of animals and herdings of animals, that you have a different diet, you have more protein and stuff. Okay, so here's the other thing. There's variation within that appendix size, so there's going to be different sizes. Here's what they do know. Does anybody have their appendix out? Nobody? There's usually somebody. It's really cool the way they do the surgery now. There's so many cool surgeries that they can do what they call endoscopically. It used to be when they would do it. I've asked my dad this before, like with surgery stuff. I go, how do you know where to cut? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you know where to cut? He's like, just experience. Because you've done it so many times, and you watch other people do it so many times, you kind of know, and you have a feel, and you kind of literally can kind of feel. They used to have to cut through here, and they'd have to cut through all the muscle to get to that point. And it's one of those things, I don't know if anybody has ever pulled well, you guys have pulled muscles before, right? Has anybody pulled an abdominal muscle before? That's horrible, okay? And it's weird, when you did it, did you realize how much you actually use your stomach muscles just for like walking and talking and breathing, and you're just like, you can't move. So they would cut you open right here, they'd take it out, and the reason they would take it out is because it would get inflamed. So here's what it does now. Your little appendix right here, put your appendix right here. There's no outlet for it. And the funny term I came up for is I called it a poo cul-de-sac, okay? Because it is hooked up to your large intestines. So basically what happens is, stomach's right here, it winds into your small intestines winds around, winds around, winds around, winds around, winds around, and then right here is at the starting point of large intestines, okay? And it goes up, across, down, goes to the rectum, and then you have the anus, and everything goes out. Right at where that junction of the small and large intestines is where that appendix is. So what can happen is poo can go by there, and it can go into the appendix, but there's really nowhere for it to go, so it just kind of goes in and out, that's about it, okay? Now it can get impacted. So what can happen is you can start shoving it in there, shoving it in there, shoving it in there. It can get inflamed, it can actually swell, and it can burst. So this is like the worst of all settings in the sense that you have something internal that blows up basically, or ruptures. You have blood mixed in there that is circulating through your body, all mixed with poo in a wet environment. How well do you think that's going to be able to heal? Well or not very well? Not very well. The other thing is, too, it will continue to bleed. So in the rest of the world, 80% of the rest of the world that does not have good medical care, what will happen is you will just literally bleed out internally and you'll die. And that's the reality situation. So here's the weird thing. They do know this, that the appendix is a really good example of vestigial organ. It's an organ that they know on average across the human population they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? They do know this also. If you have a larger appendix than normal, that you have a higher likelihood for it to burst. So you end up having these two arguments, right? How would Lamarck describe why that appendix is getting smaller, and how would Darwin describe how that appendix is getting smaller, right? The easy one's with Lamarck, right? Lamarck says, well, why is the appendix not getting small? Why is the appendix getting smaller according to Lamarck? Yeah, if we're not using it, we're losing it, it's going away, and because it's going away in our generation, or it's getting smaller in our generation because we're not using it, therefore the next generation, when we pass it on, it will also get smaller to them, and then they won't use it, and it'll get smaller again, and you keep passing it on in that sense, okay? It's not just straight about use it, lose it. He had two laws. One was law of use and disuse, but also the other law that he was talking about was the law of acquired characteristics, meaning if I lose it or I gain it in my lifetime, I will also pass that on to my children and my offspring, right? Now Darwin, on the other hand, took another look at it, and that's why I put those words up there yesterday. It's not about need, it's about reproductive or survival benefit. If I have this organ that doesn't have a perceived benefit, it doesn't add to my survival benefit. In fact, if I have a larger appendix, what do I have a higher likelihood of happening? Dying because of what? Because it ruptures. So Darwin could look at it like this. There's people who have a smaller one, people who have a larger one. If you have a larger appendix, is your survivability higher or lower? It's definitely lower. Why is it lower? Let's try it all at once, John. If I have a larger appendix, is my survivability higher or lower? It's lower. Why is it lower? Higher chance of dying. So if I have a higher chance of dying, do I have a higher or lower chance of having kids? Lower chance of having kids. And hence, the population begins to change. Those are the people who have the smaller appendix versus the much larger appendix. They're going to survive better. They make a smaller appendix so they don't waste calories and energy on that. They don't die as often. So overall, they survive longer and they produce more kids. And just like with Lamarck, they are still going to pass on those traits, but the method at which it's passed on is a little bit different. Okay? It's kind of interesting to look at those two different arguments where you go, yeah, it's not about use and disuse. It's more about what is the survival benefit, what is the reproductive benefit of having that appendix. Okay? Good? Interesting? Okay. Hit the button.